Hi there, this is Scott Tellick, author of the book series The Swithen, which tells the real legend of King Arthur across several novels, giving it the full scope and majesty that it deserves. Our podcast is an audio version of the books and breaks the story up across several weeks. We've just finished Book 1 and are about to begin Book 2. This synopsis is intended for those joining our story at Book 2 or anyone else who's interested to catch them up on where we are. But Book 2 is actually a great place to start, as it begins a whole new storyline and is much more in line with what you think when you think King Arthur, with dragons, battles, magic, and Merlin being a total badass. If you're just joining us, the one thing to know about this series, The Swithen, is that these are the real legends of King Arthur and his pals set down beginning in the year 1136. The deal with my series is that I'm not allowed to change anything from the original legends. I can only add or enhance characters and scenes in order to flesh out the stories for a modern audience. So when you listen to the synopsis, you know that this is the real origin story of Merlin from 800 years ago, not, some new made-up whatever. All right, let's get started. Please note that this synopsis will include spoilers as it tells you the entire plot of the book, including the ending. All right, The Swithen, Book 1, Our Man on Earth by Scott Tellick. We begin 15 years before King Arthur's born. The story opens in hell. The devils, having just been blindsided by the redemption of humankind by Christ just 500 years earlier, seek to have a man of their own on earth who could use knowledge of all that's past to lead people into damnation. One of them has the power to create a child in a mortal woman, and he departs to do just that. Melinda is a happy girl living with her wealthy family when the demon invades her home and disasters start to happen. Her brother is killed, her mother hangs herself, dad goes catatonic. She holds closer and closer to her beloved sister Maven for comfort as her sister Razie is taken away for fornication. Later, Razie is killed as punishment and her father dies. A hermit, Blaise, visits the house and asks Melinda if she's considered that she may be the target of a demon. This is the only thing that's made sense to Melinda, but Maven won't hear of it. Melinda uses prayer and devotion to defend herself, and she and Maven forge a life together away from the gossip of town. But when Melinda finds demonic writing behind her bed, it could only have been Maven. After a confrontation, Maven leaves to pursue a life of fun and drinking. Melinda visits Blaise, who advises her to be sure to bless herself before bed, sleep in light, and never let anger enter her heart. But when Maven shows up with a group of drunken men who all mock and belittle Melinda, she reaches the end of her rope and throws herself on her bed without following her protective routine. Melinda wakes to find that the demon has been in her bed. At that time, bearing an illegitimate child bore an automatic judgment of death by burning. Standing up to Blaise when he initially disbelieves her, he advises her to call on him when she is inevitably taken in before the court. Once there, Blaise advises that since it's not the child's fault, Melinda should be locked in a tower with 2 midwives until the baby's born, and this is soon accomplished. One midwife, Rasa, is older and warm, while the other, Farah, is young and superstitious and wants nothing of this demon child. They come to an uneasy peace until the baby's born, green, hairy, crawling, and hissing. Rasa prevents its escape, and they have Blaise baptize it just after birth, thus negating the devil's influence. The baby is named Merlin. Merlin soon changes to a human appearance, but his eyes can focus in a way other newborns can't, and he seems to be furiously thinking and listening to everything. Melinda begins to bond with the child, showing him drawings and talking to him as he grows ever more affectionate with her. Farah still regards him as demonic filth. Merlin has been born with all knowledge of the past in his head, and at birth, God grants him the ability to know all that is to come, and the ability to choose the path of good or evil for himself. Soon the infant Merlin has discovered his ability to shapeshift, with the ability to become a bird and leave the tower not far behind. What he sees outside brings the experience side to all the knowledge he was born with, and we're with him to see the formation of his incredible mind as he combines all that he knows with his experience of the world he was born into. When Melinda is finally taken back to the court for judgment, she refuses to falsely name a father for the child and is thus sentenced to burn at the stake. But Merlin leaps from her arms and addresses the judge, saying, "I know my father better than you know yours." He tells the judge that he is actually illegitimate, and all he needs to do is ask his mother for confirmation. He'll then find that the priest, who's his real father, will kill himself the next morning in order to escape judgment. And if all of this is true, the infant says, it will prove that he's no child of man, and his mother should go free. Previously, Merlin and his mother had discussed what his place was on Earth and how he should best use his abilities. They discussed that he has trouble understanding human emotions and people's short-sightedness because he sees across centuries. This night, he says he's realized that his obligation is to clean up little messes for God, like with Farah, whose family is cruel and wretched and whose grandchild, generations from now, will cause an accident that kills numerous children. Therefore, Merlin will manipulate Farah's death, thus ridding the world of her damage. His mother smacks him down, saying that it is not his place to harm any of God's creatures and demanding that he remove his arrangement of Farah's death. The next day, Farah is alive and well, and the judge calls Merlin and his mother into his private chamber. He's at emotional exhaustion and describes a night in which his mother admitted to her adultery and mysteries that had haunted him all his life, such as how he could be born to such an angry man he never felt any kinship with, and why he couldn't have been born to the kindly priest who he realizes now is actually his father. When word reaches him that the priest has committed suicide, just as predicted, and that he'll never get a chance to know his real father, he relieves Melinda of her judgment and allows her to go free, before collapsing in complete emotional devastation. That night, Merlin and Melinda are sitting quietly at home. God, having realized that because Merlin sees across centuries, he can't see the value of one person, grants Merlin a brief moment of human love. The child is able to grasp the love, bravery, forgiveness, and generosity of his mother for one short moment before it's closed off to him again. Merlin meets with Blaze and tells him that together they will work on a book that will chronicle all of the incredible changes and events that will soon be transforming the country, a book that will be gladly read for all time. He says that this book will be the great work of Blaze's life. When asked if it will also be the great work of his life, Merlin replies no. The great work of his life will be to transform the country through the creation of a king named Arthur. That's the end of Book 1. In Book 2, Merlin leaves his mother and moves into his familiar role as advisor to kings. He moves through 3 kings in that book and creates the Round Table, all the while setting the pieces in place that will result in the birth of Arthur. By the end of Book 3, which will be available this fall, Arthur will be born, and then the story will continue from there, now that, our main character has been born. Books 1 and 2 are available now in ebook and paperback at Amazon and other online retailers. Just search for The Swithen, Swithen, or Scott Telek, Telek. The podcast will begin Book 2 on August 7th, and you can find it on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music, and SoundCloud. Thanks for listening, and I hope you join us as we tell this super deluxe version of the original epic fantasy with the most legendary characters of all time, with all the scope and majesty it deserves.